All right, here we go. Ready?
3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody, alive, or at least in one take. My name is Brian Ward.
And I am Brian Westron.
Welcome to the Brokers Summit edition of the Michigan Realtors Government Affairs Videocast, live from our own makeshift Butler cabin here at St. John's Inn and Golf Course. And Brian and I just got to ride in on a golf cart, which we loved, for some early analysis on the play that's going on in the legislative arena. Brian and I are going to break this down for you. And first, we're going to start with a topic that I think all of you in the room have heard about. We've been running some radio ads with the help of the National Association of Realtors Issues Mobilization Fund, and that is the first-time homebuyer savings account, which is having a pretty good round so far.
Yeah,
I would say way under par.
I would agree, and I would also say that riding in here with you was quite an honor. And usually, if you see me golf, I'm not fit to really carry his clubs. So, but the first-time homebuyer savings account has been really well received in the legislature. It moved through the Senate very quickly. As you know, right now in the legislature, they're really deep into the budget, and one of the issues that we had to be mindful of with pushing the first-time homebuyer savings account legislation was that anything that has a fiscal impact, anything that's going to have some kind of impact on the Treasury, we really need to make sure that they understand what that impact will be and really characterize first-time homebuyer savings accounts as one that will be a very long-term impact, not something immediate. So we've done some preliminary meetings, and we've had one committee hearing in the House Tax Policy Committee already. It was an interesting committee meeting. They asked a lot of good questions. Having talked to the committee subsequent to that hearing, we do have the votes to get it out of that committee and to the House floor. At that point in time, we'll continue our meetings with leadership in the governor's office to make sure that it has a smooth sailing from there on out. Just by a quick overview, this is an area that we're really enthusiastic about for Realtor members, because this is a program that really allows Realtors to brand home ownership in Michigan. Not only owning your principal residence in Michigan, but really investing in Michigan long term. So it creates an incentivized savings program for either an individual who's coming out of college or high school into a trade that wants to start saving long term for that first time home, but it also provides an ability for a guardian or a grandparent or a parent to start saving for a dependent over the long-term period of 20 years, because you can deduct that upfront investment in these funds for up to 20 years, and then that money grows tax-free for the purposes of your state income tax. So it's one of those talking points that we think is very valuable for Realtors who may be working with families, who may also be working with people with a leasehold interest that are looking forward to getting into the home market at some point in the future. So it's a real talking point, a real way for Realtors to be ambassadors for the program.
Yeah, we're very excited about the possibilities that this bill opens up in retaining talent here in Michigan. And it performed very well in the front nine, passed the Senate 37-1. So we're looking forward to see how it finishes its round here. Turning our attention to other things, the appraisers in Michigan are on the course as well. And the appraisers this year are looking at a bill that would kind of mirror what home builders and real estate licensees have, which is an 18-month statute of limitations for administrative complaints. This is a bill that makes sure that we don't have situations like we saw after the market downturn, where 5, 6, 7 years go by, and then someone is coming back at an appraiser saying, "Hey, my value dropped, and that appraisal you gave me 5 years ago is terrible." So what we want to make sure is that they have those same protections. This bill passed through the House with flying colors and is over in the Senate. We're expecting a hearing on the bill next week in the Senate Regulatory Reform Committee with Chairman Rocca. So very excited for that piece of legislation to begin moving as well.
Yeah, and another area that we've talked about in the past is the state real estate transfer tax. We've looked at the exemption view over the last 3 years, and really what does it mean? For years preceding that, and during the economic downturn, there was sort of an understanding of what it actually stood for, which is if you sold your property at a declining value, because it's been sort of informally known as the declining value exemption, your SEV when you sold was equal to or less than when you purchased. That legislation was very meaningful to a lot of your clients who sold at a loss over the last 6 years. There's new legislation that's working its way through the process right now, sponsored by Representative Maturin, Realtor friend and Realtor member, and that would make sure that exemption also applies to new construction, and where that SEV was on unimproved land, heretofore it has not applied because they are going to go off of the first SEV on purchase, which in those instances would be dirt. So as Brad likes to say, it's kind of hard to be.
We hope you are not selling your home for less than dirt.
So that legislation is on the.
Yep, that legislation, we've had very good conversations with Chairman Brandenburg over in the Senate. He heads up the Senate Finance Committee, so we're hoping that a hearing on that is coming up very soon. So now we're going to wade into an issue that tends to get backed up sometimes in the legislature, which is the statewide septic code.
Yes.
Laugh, it's live!
So, as Brad mentioned, before I was with Michigan Realtors, before Brad was with Michigan, we waded into this issue. We've been knee-deep in it ever since. It's left us no shortage of odoriferous puns, and we do look forward to many.
Tends to linger.
Yes. And really, we're looking forward to those committee hearings in both the House and the Senate, where we get to
Flush it out.
Really flush it out. But the good news here is that is the leadership on this legislation, as we've been working through the process. It's really been strong. And in years past and in past iterations of a statewide septic code, as we are the only state without one. We've sort of had fits and starts, and things get derailed along the way. This has buy-in from the governor's office. It has bipartisan support. It has a very progressive Democrat on one of the bills and a very conservative Republican on the other bill. The good news is that there are 5 points that Michigan Realtors has long sought in a statewide septic code. The first one is obviously getting rid of point of sale. Using point of sale as sort of an arbitrary measure to capture and ensure groundwater health has always been one of those areas where we felt that it creates a false shield. I mean, it presupposes that a transfer is going to occur, and it does not in any way assess those other properties that don't transfer. So getting rid of point of sale, this legislation would phase out all existing point of sale programs within 3 years of enactment, and it would suspend any adoption of future new point of sale programs. The second one is exclusive jurisdiction. Because one of the things that we've always dealt with is this patchwork of different approaches, and whether or not there's a township issue or that there's some sort of overlap with zoning and setbacks with where a septic has to be placed. This would put exclusive jurisdiction within the purview of the Department of Environmental Quality and the County Health Department. So that would be significant. The third is opening the marketplace to alternative systems. Right now, there isn't really a clear pathway for widespread alternative systems to actually be used in Michigan. And furthermore, if they have been approved for use, it's not always very clear where they can be used. So this would set up a framework for that. The fourth that I want to touch on is uniformity. We have definitions that mean one thing in one jurisdiction and another in another jurisdiction. So we want to have uniformity of definition of what constitutes failure, what constitutes an inspection. And that fifth is really the development of a database that provides good info on a property for all of you. Because that's a key selling point, in talking to your colleagues as we work through this process, getting to the heart of actually understanding and telling a buyer that they should have this looked at, but actually having a database with information that's ready-made. So those things are all in place. It is a tricky piece of legislation to move because it does consider one thing, which is a rolling assessment requirement that every 10 years you have to have your system assessed. That's a little different than a mandate that you have to have a full-scale inspection.
However, in terms of the 10-year rolling mandate, a lot of the things that are going on through your business will lend themselves to meeting that requirement. So whether it's the homeowner had a pump out, whether or not it was the mortgage company required an inspection at the point of sale, you as a good buyer's agent saying, hey, this home's on a septic system, you might want to take a look at that. All of that will kind of feed into the system and then, extend that 10-year window. So really building upon things that the private sector is already doing.
Yeah, absolutely, and ultimately, taking that point of sale or that mandate that could encumber a closing and really putting it in the hands of the marketplace and a buyer and a seller to decide. But at the same time, being realistic about how important that healthy septic system is to the groundwater and to the property value. But thus far, the actual movement on the bill has been very positive, and we really hope
that one went over some people's heads.
But at the same time, we're extremely optimistic. We have an April 30th meeting with stakeholders on this, and we really want to,
make sure the tank's clean. So, it wouldn't be a videocast, and it wouldn't be Michigan Realtors Government Affairs if we didn't talk about protection of short-term vacation rentals. We want to bring this up. This is, though some of the conversation may have kind of quieted down in the public and in the letters to the editor and stuff like that, we are, as your Government Affairs team, still continuously talking about this with the state legislature. Those bills are still very much alive. We're still looking for votes for those those areas where it tends to be a little bit more difficult to get behind something like this. But we want to report that we've had a lot of our local associations who are facing some local ordinance on this that are beginning to have success shopping around a model ordinance that we've put together at the Michigan Realtors. One that takes a reasonable approach to regulating these things, something that's in between an all-out ban of vacation rental properties and total anarchy. So we just had one victory over in help me out here.
Well, we've got 3 different areas in Sheboygan, Casco, and Ludington is now looking at this. And the good news is that as the statewide legislation was introduced and as it's become really discussed in your local markets as a possibility, it's really raised the profile of this discussion. And in doing so, I think people have really started to coalesce around the idea that there is a way to welcome and open your arms to vacation rental approaches without just banning it as a commercial activity.
Do you know what those houses at the Masters rent out for?
Nice tie-in.
Thank you. We would also be remiss if we didn't talk to you about the very important broker involvement program. You being all brokers in the room, we are happy to say that we have a number of our brokers in Michigan that are signed up for the broker involvement program. We have information that's available, but really what the broker involvement program is doing is putting you and your agents closely in touch with the members of Congress, the members of state legislature when we have important issues like statewide septic, like the first-time home buyer savings account, like commercial, like the commercial broker lien, like the short-term vacation rentals. We're looking at getting in touch with our members of Congress, with our members of the state legislature through the calls for action that we send out. The broker involvement program is you sign up for an office. It will make sure that message is kind of branded to your brokerage, it's branded to you. Believe it or not, we found that your agents are likely to open your emails more than they are likely to open emails from us. And so the broker involvement program is a way to kind of expand that net that we cast as a very good grassroots organization. So we encourage you all to sign up for the broker involvement program. And outside of the broker involvement program, we also have the Realtor Party Mobile Action Alerts, which, Brian, what's the number?
30644. Text Realtor to that jingle, 30644. And you will be notified of all things. And as Brad has mentioned in the past, this isn't a text alert that you're going to receive often and on a daily basis. It's really used to really mobilize activity on issues of great importance when they're actually at a tipping point. So really, hopefully, if you haven't signed up, hopefully you would do that right now. Raise your phone and text
the word Realtor to
30644.
And with that, we're going to end this lovely Masters of Public Policy edition, Broker Summit edition of the Videocast with a nice little golf clap from all of you.